Hello, everyone. We have got spoilers for you today, but we're not going to tell you how many just yet. It's not how we do this here.
No, we won't be transparent like the times before.
Well, this time we don't just have one. So we have to be a little more fun with it. We guarantee it's more than one and less than 100, because we're not quite that lucky that BCP gives us an entire series of deck lists.
Yeah, so prepare for 99 spoilers.
All right. Well, everyone, without further ado, let's get this show on the road. And of course, we are going to be talking about the new Sabbat spoilers. And very specifically, we get the box art for Path of Death and the Soul.
And all cards we are going to spoil are from this deck.
Yeah. We wanted to keep it, I wanted to keep it like, so that we're
Card
talking
number
about
one.
the same topic. Sorry. Delays. I love slight latency that makes me think that people are done when they're not.
No worries.
So, first of all, let's talk about what these paths are in the first place for those of you that haven't seen the memo. Paths are sort of like a separate, we're not going to call it a title because it's not a title, and they're not keywords because VTest doesn't have keywords except for queued. And wait, we're not getting there yet. We're not getting there yet. Go ahead.
But it is something which you, if you have seen spoilers before, you might have seen on the vampires on the left side a new icon, like path are gonna be represented from new prints with a new icon.
Yeah.
So it's a new mechanic in itself.
Yeah, it is. It looks a lot like a clan icon when you're looking at it, but it is not a clan icon. But it will function sort of like a clan icon. In fact, let's go to our first card, which gives us an example of what this looks like. So this is Morbidity. This card has already been spoiled, and I wanted to spoil this one. I wanted to show this one first because I'm a little salty here, Jan. Just a little bit salty. Do you know why I might be salty here, Jan?
I have no idea. Maybe just because you just wanted some other products to be released first.
Maybe. I mean, that might have something to do with it. This definitely isn't a Salubri card that existed before, and they're now giving it to, I don't know, the Sabbat, Hecata, and La Sombra. I guess maybe La Sombra may not have any more Sabbat. Who knows? And not even in disciplines that match what the Salubri could do. If this was a Sabbat Salubri playable card, I don't think I'd have as much frustration, but I want this card for my deck that I want to play.
You'll get there eventually.
But the card is really good. Yeah, go ahead.
And what I do like about the new cards in general, like the new minion cards, is they either or mechanic. Like, I mean, I'm not in depth, as most of you might know, for the non V5 cards, but I think it is a new way to increase playability for a lot of clans or vampires without having either a three-way effect or just like it widely opened because it's path locked too. So you can go in a wider variety for vampires in this path.
Yeah. I also do really enjoy it because there is still some level of flexibility. We do get the ability to have cards that do cross the boundaries like we need to have while still being kind of within their own lane. I am looking forward to the number of rulings, though, that are going to have to deal with, I still have that symbol, but I transition Anarch. Why don't I have that? Why am I not able to play this card anymore? And that is because your sect or your path goes on pause when you are not a Sabbat vampire, similar to if you have a Sabbat title. Your title will go on pause while you are not a Sabbat vampire. And that makes sense. If you don't recognize the Sabbat don't recognize you. But it only sort of makes sense because you can still technically follow the path if you were not a Sabbat vampire. You just don't adhere to Sabbat.
Yeah.
But we won't. I'll stop there.
This is where RPG mechanics are not as in-depth reflected on Vitas, and I think it's fine.
Yeah.
But what's mentioning is the key part of the memo you presented earlier. Like, if Sabbat vampires have no path yet, and they can burn one blood in the influence phase to choose any of 4 paths.
Yeah, this is an official ruling from BCP that I think is great because it means this is inclusive of vampires from history. So for all of you naysayers out there that keep saying, oh, all these new cards are making all the old cards worse. No, now they're making the old cards infinitely better. I can think of a number of cards that are going to benefit tremendously for this. In fact, during a discussion in one of the Discord posts, I'd made a comment about how there was no way Goratrix could play this because he doesn't, one, he'd have to get a path somehow, and two, I also thought one of the paths was not going to have the discipline that it has. I was wrong on both counts now. So just want to admit when I'm wrong. I don't think I'm right about everything. I know I'm wrong about things, but you got to defend hard.
Absolutely.
So let's go on for morbidity. This is a great card, by the way. Being able to temporarily hold blood from somebody can let you throw somebody in torpor or just give you some kind of fear on your opponent of torpor happening and make them really make some changes. And then, of course, being able to increase the cost of combat cards for your opponent is a very powerful effect, especially at no cost to you.
Yeah.
Moving on from here, we've got gifts from hereafter.
And this is, I think, a very Hecate-themed card in a way, because very ally focused, and it's ally +1 bleed. Like we have, what's the ally we have already who has +1 bleed mechanics? I don't remember. Not aggressive corpse.
Yeah, aggressive corpse is a good example, I think. But yeah, I'm just trying to make sure you're not inadvertently overstepping into something that everybody else doesn't know about yet. Okay.
No. There's one where you can lock to increase +1 bleed.
Oh, are you talking about on a vampire? There is the Bane Mummy.
Is it on a vamp?
It's to a vampire. It's the Bane Mummy. It's the one that I never remember the name of.
No.
Hobbs's Bone Shambler.
Yeah,
okay. So. I did not remember him. Thank you so much. But yeah, this card is great. On top of it, that secondary effect, being able to unlock the ally with your vampire, like tremendous.
And I think this is one example for a lot of cards, which I think invite really to play new Sabbat decks.
Yeah,
like include Sabbat vampires in your current decks to make use of the mechanic because it's really strong.
Agreed. Very much so agreed. Going from there, let's talk about how many spoilers that we have. Now we said it's not one spoiler, and it's not just 2 spoilers. We have 3 spoilers that we're going to be giving to you today. And let's start first with the box art, right? The box art is always a vampire, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think Hobbs said it's fire.
It literally is.
Here's the vampire.
He is El Monsignor. I'm not going to show you his capacity or his disciplines yet, but I think you all expected that at the very least, he's in that path, right?
And he's La Sombra.
Yeah. So let's check out the rest of this. Yes. So superior Oblivion, inferior Dominate on a 4 cap, which some people might not find impressive. I think this is really good for a 4 cap, especially with this discipline.
Yeah. And it matches quite good with the new cards we're going to show. But also, if you consider what has already been spoiled, he has through the inferior or we can expect him to be able to be to play a lot of cards with the new either or mechanic. he will have a lot to choose from.
Yep.
So 2 disciplines don't matter as much.
Yeah, I think we're going to see that be a lot more common. I think this is an interesting way to make these sort of like a lot of people have played for years 1, 2, 3 caps, but I think we're going to see more play out of the 4, 5, 6 than we've seen before. I know some of you are like, "But anarchs have done that already." Yeah, but this will be a little bit different a way to see that kind of happen, especially
Yeah,
cross
even
clan.
because we even got a new politics card who punishes 8 caps or higher.
Yep. Think that's going to be real interesting. So let's follow this up then with our next spoiler card. So what is it? I didn't do one of my fun little mock-up together things because I was really rushed on this. BCP gave us less than 48 hours for me to put together a slide deck, and I've been real busy this weekend.
But anyway, we're really happy to do it.
Yeah. So our next card here is Gravebound Drone, and this card is wild. Jan, you want to take it away?
Yeah, it's another ally who, as Bone Shambler before, has a mechanic who can increase bleed. But you don't have to lock.
Mm-hmm.
It is you can burn 1 life from another copy to get +1 bleed on superior.
Yeah, and to be real quickly clear about that, you'll notice that this card is the one burning the life from the other ally with a during clause. So that means this ally can only do that 1 time. The other allies can't do it unless they're performing their own actions. But Inferior is also a really good ability on top of it.
And it's just like burn 1 life to prevent 1 damage inflicted, to another copy of this card in combat. So you are really invited to spam.
Yeah.
It's a card who gets infinitely stronger the more copies you play.
Yeah. It's something that you can easily manage to keep in play, something that can get a decent amount of bleed, and something that if you have a small army of them is going to be extraordinarily relevant, especially considering you can stack the additional bleed you can get from the previous card we talked about on this card.
Yeah, and especially since the last time we spawned, it was Split the Veil, right?
Yeah, we were able to bring something like this back again and again and again.
And it gets inferior, but to starting life again. So you have ways to just start amassing it. I think it's gonna be a not immediate, really a fast deck, but medium to late game, it'll crush a lot.
Yeah, I would agree with you. I think that's presently where some people have argued that allies have been at their weakest is recruiting them doesn't seem like you build up a lot. The last time, obviously, we saw there's only been a handful of decks that have really kind of done that sort of aggressive throughout allies, get a lot of bleeds. But I think this is going to be definitely an interesting and unique mechanic where losing them is not necessarily the end of them. But our next card, unfortunately, doesn't directly benefit this card 100%, but is another interesting ally card with counters on it.
Yeah, and it is a card where I wanted Iron Maiden Dance of Death to be our intro today, but I wasn't allowed.
Yeah, I don't want to get copyright stricken. That will erase this video from time. What we have for you today is Dance of the Dead. It is a 1 stealth action that is unique, and it comes into play, and it becomes a miniature sort of police station plus maneuver function that you can give to your wraith or zombie allies. Starts in play with 4 counters, and once each combat you can burn one of those counters to offer it the press or the maneuver if you want to, and then it leaves play once all the counters are gone. Whoops.
Yeah, and I think that's really strong, especially with Gravebound Drone, who can burn life to prevent 1 damage. You can easily stack, go press, hit for 1, prevent 1 by burning a blood if you make it to the combat or if you're blocked.
Yeah.
So it has little opportunity cost because you can decide to burn a blood on the drone, if you know you make it through to increase the bleed, or you can wait, be blocked, burn one to prevent to inflict 2 damage.
Yeah, I think this is going to be especially good though with the 2 big new aggro allies that came out in the Hecata, because this is going to give them a lot of room to just be able to pummel you unexpectedly and to be able to fill the gap. One of the biggest arguments I heard for aggressive corpse is that, like, well, one maneuver kind of ends everything that they're doing. That's not the case anymore. Better have a couple of them and better hope it pays off.
Yeah,
it's really nice to see.
In the one game we had with Carl, like with you and the others, Carl forgot that Juliet Parr had 1 maneuver. It wouldn't have mattered if he just could have burned 1 counter to give a press, because she has 1 maneuver only, and then Gines would have had to spend cards. So very efficient, gain 4 presses or 4 maneuvers for costless stealth, +1 stealth action. Sure, unique, but you're gonna run a couple of those anyway.
Yep, because you're not going to burn through this fast. You're going to know when you want to use this and when you're not going to use this. You're not going to use that maneuver to save. You're often not going to use that maneuver to save an ally. You're often not going to press if you don't think it's going to really do a whole lot. This is a card used to, like, finish off a combat that you're ahead in.
Yeah.
So Jan and I have... go ahead.
Or just manage, like, you can maneuver away if you really need to.
Yeah. So Jan and I have one more thing that we already had a small argument about before we started this podcast, and I think it's something I want to touch on. And I want to be clear. There's this thing where I've gotten already back and forth a little bit of this, like, I'm shilling for BCP because I keep talking about V5. Right now I'm really gung-ho about 2-player. Guys, I express my problems when I have my problems. You could go back in the Discord and find other things, and I've got some problems here today. If we can have if I can have one more little bit of your time, I want to talk about queuing and why I think that, like, we could have fixed this properly, and instead we just took the existing rules and we threw a few layers of duct tape. I'm happy to some degree that we have codified these into actual rules. I think that's really important for the game to have.
I want to say that already.
Yes, you did, and I acknowledge that. But I also think that we could have structured these better. So 1, we didn't remove design space, which is an important thing for me and the long-term life of any game. So that we, 2, kept the card being intuitive, making it a card that a new player can pick up, understand how it functions, and don't need to reach in the rulebook to find out what specifically this sort of thing means. And then, what was my third? Why did I just forget my third point? Great, I'm really good at this.
You said intuition,
intuition,
language,
design space,
and flavor.
And flavor, yeah. From a flavor perspective, I want to especially talk a little bit about what that is. So I'm going to give you a base understanding. Jan is going to give you his feedback on it, but I don't think we're going to fill this whole episode with this. Jan and I, unfortunately, are a little pressed for time on both ends. So we'll give you a taste of what we want to talk about, and then hopefully in the very, very near future, we'll get to finish our discussion about our opinions on queuing. But first, let's talk about what queuing is. So queuing is a new series of cards that they're going to be producing. One of those such cards, is Hedonism, which we'll get to in a minute. Queuing is to set up a future combat during the resolution of an action. If a combat is queued during another combat, the queued combat will start after the current combat ends. If a combat is queued before action resolution, the queued combat will start after the resolving the action, but still as part of the action resolution. And then a bunch of stuff that's related to that. There is a handy chart that helps you understand kind of what all this means. So you announce an action, somebody attempts to block, you use a card like Hedonism to push the block to somebody else. You can either continue with your action or they can try to block again. And if so, you go through this tree of either having the effect apply or having the resolution of the block occur, and then having the queued combats happen after both of those things. And now this is where I want to throw out my flavor problem that I have with this. My flavor problem is this. If I am a vampire that is on his way to do something, and I have a friend of mine that's kind of following behind in the wings, and they jump out and assault the other person that's trying to block me when it happens, and they pull that person away, my action isn't going to magically be automatically successful. They are going to have their fight before I ever get done with what I'm going to do. To me, flavor-wise, the queued combat should come first.
And I think flavor, like we agree in almost all of the 3 counts. Flavor-wise, I would say it is like more like somebody else tries to help you, like hedonism tries to lock a vampire not involved in the current action. So you have like a side show going on, and it's okay that this takes place after the main act, like after resolving the action itself.
Yeah, I think this is also mechanically problematic, though, for another reason. And that goes into the design space issue, not just in hampering design space, but in what this allows design space to do. Because the effects happen first before the queued combat occurs. So there are going to be some very weird outcomes that can occur, like, for example, giving 3 blood to the younger vampire who's about to get into combat with the person, because the action's going to resolve first.
Yeah, but this, I don't think that's much of a problem, because you need to announce which vampire gets blood or whatever during announcement of the action. Like, you can't change your target.
Sure, you technically can also play change of target after the block happens, but before combats are queued, but not really, because of the way the next part of the problem I have is the timing here is crazy weird. The timing here is just like weird, because you can't queue things later. You wait until after this queued combat before using other cards that affect the block. Cards that don't say block resolution, cards that say after the combat has ended. But you can't technically play them in that window because a queued combat stops that from happening. If we took this same block here, the same giant blue block here, and we just moved queued combat 1 block to the left of it, all of these problems with Psych, Hidden Lurker, Fast Reaction, they're already done.
I mean, you'll hear a lot of us, we disagree. So I wouldn't go into detail right now. But I think having it at one specified timing window, like every queued combat happens after effect or block resolution, makes it easier to learn, because you don't have to think which comes first, which introduces its own timing window.
Now,
you just can give new players, they have to learn always, combat always happens during resolution after effects or block is applied or resolved.
Now, later when we have this conversation, I want you to keep something in mind as I present one thing that kind of slam dunks on Jan's argument here, which is a comment given by Anka in the Viken message thread, which talks about how Siren's Lure is going to have its own special timing because of card text. It will exist after the action resolution, as opposed to hedonism, which happens in the normal queued phase, but is still a queue, so invalidates any other ability to queue anything.
Yeah, but I would say we just gave you a teaser for our discussions.
Yes. There's a lot to dig into here, and we don't want to leave anything on the table, especially with both of us having had the days that we've had. And I think this is a good enough morsel that it can be engaged with later. To be clear, though, Jan and I do agree with one thing, right? We both agree this is clarity that is necessary for a mechanic that has existed for 23 years on the books, but has had no physical paper documentation except a series of message board threads from long, long ago that have been archived by dedicated people who are trying to keep it where it needs to be, right? We're both on that same page, at least.
Yeah, absolutely. So
we hope you
with
enjoyed our
that being
spoilers.
said,
Yeah.
And hope to see you next time.
Yep. Thank you so much for watching. We look forward to the discussion in the Discord. Thanks so much, everybody. Have a good night.
Good night.